Good Monday afternoon. My name is Jerry Miller. Welcome to the I Love CVille Show. This show broadcasts live across the I Love CVille network. We're live in Charlottesville, Albemarle County, Central Virginia, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world. Give it a like and a share on any of the 12 Facebook pages that you're watching this program on. Nicole Scro is our guest, a third-generation builder and developer. She's got a law degree from the University of Virginia. She has experience across the real estate industry in private equity at a real estate brokerage firm. She's now a builder and a developer, and she's committed to leaving her footprint in Charlottesville and Central Virginia in a better spot than when she first arrived. The quintessential conscious capitalist or social entrepreneur, the kind of folks that we love to spotlight on the I Love CVille Show. Before we welcome Nicole to the program, let's tell you 10 seconds, 15 seconds about us. We are an advertising agency at I Love CVille and VMV Brands. We also do real estate investment ourselves. Our building, the Macklin Building, 24 tenants that we manage. Also, on the first and second floors, we help manage the brands of 115 clients as of this morning. Two of our favorites, Interstate Pest and Service Companies and Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine. We represent all aspects of their brand. Interstate started in 1969. Guys, get this, with the first generation, Mr. Robert Wells, who has since passed away. In 1969 in Charlottesville, he used payphones in his personal truck to build a company. Today, they have almost 100 team members and a Commonwealth-wide working footprint. Truly a success story. Dr. Wagner, another success story of Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine. He is changing people's lives through chiropractic care, sports medicine, and physical therapy. Now, Judah Wickhauer is our director. Judah and I have worked together for 8 years. Savannah College of Art and Design in the house with Judah Wickhauer. My friend, studio camera, and then two-shot, and we welcome the intelligent, knowledgeable, visionary Nicole Scroll to the program. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Jerry?
I'm doing very well.
Thank you for
coming.
Intro.
I can follow you around all day, every week if you like.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
Nicole Scroll, before we get into the nitty-gritty here, before we talk business and real estate, which obviously is a passion of both of ours.
That's the fun part.
Who is Nicole Scroll and what is she all about?
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Okay. So I don't know where to start exactly with this one, but I know that I was a really shy kid growing up, so my family has had such a big impact on me and a few close friends. So my family, I grew up with two lawyers as parents.
Okay. What kind of law?
Well, my father did real estate, and he's a developer himself. Okay. So he practiced law for like 3 months and then became a developer. And my mom did litigation. She did divorce and family law. But it's a very argumentative and curious group of people that I grew up with, and I think I never grew out of the why stage. I think is probably a good definition of me, which is super annoying. But I don't know.
What do you mean by the why stage?
Just kind of like, oh man, why do I have to wear my seatbelt, Mom? Because let's explain aerodynamics to a 4-year-old. So just kind of that persistent trying to understand.
Always pushing the envelope.
Yeah. So I think that has had a big impact on how I view things. And then I guess, what did you say, your passions and...
Yeah, hobbies and interests.
Hobbies, okay. So I play a lot of sports.
Okay, really?
Yes.
I love sports. Like which ones?
So growing up, it was very cliche. My father had 3 girls. Okay. And so I was enrolled in every single sport.
Love it.
Soccer, basketball, volleyball, lacrosse, name a sport. I played it.
What was your best?
So the ones I wound up focusing on were basketball and volleyball, which makes a lot of sense for somebody who's like 5'2".
So were you a scrappy point guard with handles, vision, good team leader, great lateral quickness, love to get everybody involved in the game?
That's very generous, but I was a point guard.
Okay, I totally see it. You had good handles, right?
Yeah, so the best was always just kind of like running down the girl in front of me because I could run really fast. But yeah, I think sports... because I did that so much, it definitely had an impact. And I remember thinking when I was younger, okay, we won, you're pushed so hard to win. And I was kind of like, well, okay, we won. I kind of learned early kind of what made me play better. And it wasn't necessarily winning. I would make up these narratives, this team is quintessential, the bad team. Because, the girl checks the other girl when they're going. So I had to create these sort of narratives of good versus evil in sports. So I was like, all right, I need some higher level thing to drive me. So I learned a lot about myself through sports. Anyone who plays sports knows, you learn grit and persistence and
I say it on the show all the time.
Hustle.
Team sports are in a lot of ways better than education for teaching someone about life and how it's going to play out. You learn how to fail. You learn how to work together. You know how to win. You know what you're good at. You know a pecking order of who are the better athletes and what they're good at. And that pecking order in a lot of ways determines how the team plays out.
Bring out the best in whomever.
Exactly. Oh, I think one of the worst things about sports today, and I'm going to throw it to you, is the 8th place gets a trophy mentality.
Oh, okay. Let's have that conversation.
What do you think about that? Because I think you're a competitive alpha dog, and it probably pisses you off that 8th place now is getting trophies.
I honestly, that is the last thing I ever think about.
Really?
It is. Because again, like I said, I'm competitive. I like to win.
Okay.
That's undeniable. I will try to win if we play. But at the same time, 15 seconds after I win or lose, I don't care anymore.
Really?
So I think instilling some sort of broader narrative and reaching for broader ideals beyond the, end of the game is important. And sports does that. I mean, you talk to any coach and they're never really they never really talk in those kinds of let's win this one game. It's always these broader narratives again. So, I mean, I guess to circle back to your question, I don't really know how to answer it. I don't really think about that. I think it's good to give people positive feedback that don't necessarily get that. And that's a kind of a pushing thing that happens, I
like it.
I don't know.
No, I mean, you can't be wrong on this. It's your opinion. Wayne Lawhorn giving you props. Elisa Petit, am I saying that right? Giving you some props right now. Sarah Simona giving you some props. Give it a like, give it a share. Charles Schoolcraft, welcome to the show. Keith Rosenfield, the owner of Hotcakes in Barracks Road, welcome to the show. You have nine real estate agents watching the program as we speak. All right, so you grow up in a 2-attorney household, albeit your dad is now a developer. 3 daughters.
Yes.
Talk to us about how you end up from childhood to adolescence to heading to college.
Okay. How do I end up? I don't know. I mean, I was a very annoying kid, and I just constantly was very curious. And
where'd you go to school?
George Washington
University. GW, baby.
Yes. I was in D.C., so it was always a fascinating time. Everybody had internships. And so it was a very work-centric school, which was great. And, Obama got inaugurated during that time.
How did that change things for you with Obama coming into the White House?
Oh, it was wonderful. I mean, at that inauguration, I've never seen that many people in one spot. So it was great. I don't know if we want to talk about national politics.
We could talk anything you want. We have an hour. No commercial breaks.
Oh, man. Well, it's definitely very different than what we have now. So I definitely harken back to that. I don't know how that has to do with me going to college, but that's how we got here. But,
so you're in D.C. at this time where it's
yeah, everyone was.
It's the time. It's the place to be.
Centric.
Yeah. So what was 4 years at GW like?
I don't know. I worked really hard in undergrad. I was super focused on my grades.
Yeah.
And I had 2 internships per semester. So I worked really hard during that time. I don't know. It wasn't as typical of a
complete opposite
experience.
Of mine. Mine was all about no school. Mine was all about going to party, staying up as late as possible,
right,
doing all the things that I should not be doing. So you were on the right track. I was on the bad track.
So then I went to law school here in Charlottesville.
Ooh.
And Charlottesville and UVA law has a very community-driven kind of culture. And
play softball and drink beer.
That is what I did. A lot of. So it was, I loved Charlottesville. And so my school experience of Charlottesville was the stereotypical, white college student experience of this is such a Neverland, this is perfect. I never, so my experience of Charlottesville was as a student in UVA. It was very different from now how I perceive the reality of Charlottesville to be. And so I always kind of sympathize with those who see Charlottesville, who come here for school and, leave and then kind of have this distant memory of Charlottesville as being this great place. And I kind of have to be like, well, guys, let's talk about that. Because now I'm on the other side of that as a, professional working in a field here that sees the hardships of Charlottesville. So it's...
I love that answer. So this is there's a lot to unpack on this answer. And you have 2 city councilors in Charlottesville watching the program as we speak.
Okay.
So when I went to UVA, and you're the second law school grad that we've had on the show in the last week. Mike Keenan was here from the Juice Laundry. I think he was UVA law in 2008 or 2009.
Okay.
So
that
he
was
had
before me.
a lot of good things to say about the experience.
Yeah,
so
it was wonderful.
You talk about this, the concept of, and I talk about this often, when a student, and I was, 2000 to 2004 for me, when a student is at UVA, it's very much this bubble world where it's like, when I was there, we didn't cross 14th Street. We stayed on the corner. We didn't even venture downtown.
Yeah.
Everybody, it was this homogenous bubble. Then I stayed here. Then I started getting out of the bubble, and I started realizing that we have things like a dramatic, huge wealth gap. We have huge affordable housing issues. And we have some issues with race, which we'll talk to in a little bit, that we have to clearly confront, conversate, and execute a plan to solve before we're ever going to heal. Put that to a side here. When did you realize, put that to a side. Okay. You're at UVA Law School. When did you realize, once you got into the workforce in Charlottesville, that this community, which USA Today, Bloomberg, and Huffington Post are calling the best and happiest place to live in America, has some things that it needs to address?
Oh, gosh. Well, working in real estate's going to do that to you real quick.
Yeah? Was your first gig in real estate?
Yeah, so it was working at in land use and zoning here in Charlottesville at a local, law firm.
Okay.
So I worked with the most amazing and brilliant people. I kind of was always skeptical I could be a lawyer. I worked with Valerie Long and Ashley Davies, and they are so brilliant and so amazing, and they can dissect the most complex issues. And so they would tackle many of the land use applications that were brought before City Council in Emerald County, and you saw the, what got denied, what that eventual thing was built out to be, what got built and why, and kind of the perspective of how we actually build out this Charlottesville landscape and why, right? For one, I this is across the country, so it's not a Charlottesville thing, but, every single developer is a white man who's usually older. And so not to, diminish or put down that, but they have a specific perspective growing up that way. And so the landscape around us is built based on that perspective, right? So that's one thing. But then the process just drives you into a very specific, square peg that you kind of, or whatever, circle.
Tangible examples.
Okay, so I think one of the most fascinating land use applications that I helped as a tiny associate, but I was the East Jefferson apartments that was approved. It hasn't been built yet. There's a medical office there. It was Great Eastern Management that submitted the application, and they wanted to build an apartment complex. It wasn't anything too exciting.
I think John Neal is the point of contact for that project with Great Eastern Management.
Who was
He's
it?
a commercial broker, John Neal.
Oh, yeah, he works with Great Eastern. Yeah.
And he's watching now.
Oh, great. Yeah. So that was. I got very passionate about that project because I lived at City Walk, and I remember that surrounding community very specifically, even in the public hearings, let alone the private meetings, saying we don't want renters. It was a very explicit thing to say.
North downtown, no in my backyard.
Little High Street.
Yes in my backyard.
It was a very stereotypical example of what land use often brings out is, landowners, homeowners against having more people live next to them. I mean, it's a very, very stereotypical NIMBY. And so the dynamic on council and how they approached it was really fascinating. And I think so most of the crowd was those who lived around that area. And it was mostly, white people that lived around there.
The neighborhood association.
And the neighborhood association. And they said, Great Eastern had proffered 15% affordable housing for that area.
On site?
I think it was either going to be on site or it was going to be off site, but it was going to be built rather than some sort of cash payment, which was like the first time we had done this.
So it was not money allocated to some slush fund and never tracked or followed or managed down the road.
Right. It was going to be
it often happens.
Right. It was going to be something was going to be built, but it might be off site. And I remember everyone being like, "Oh, it's only 15%, doesn't mean anything." And Wes Bellamy had said, "I don't think he stood up to the crowd," and it was such a great moment because he was like, "I don't think you all understand the impact of even one affordable housing unit on that family. Like, you don't understand how, yes, it's not enough, but it is so deeply impactful for that family. So we should, we should understand the value of that." Of course, now Mayor Walker has come in with a very different perspective, like, well, it's not enough, and she reaches for more, and I think that's fascinating to have that dynamic. But it was a very interesting.
Don't get me started on that.
But it was a very interesting, like, Wes Bellamy kind of speaking out to, like, you all don't understand, and it was great to see in such a political process that kind of integrity to say, like, this is and him bringing that perspective to so many people who are just like, don't have that perspective. You need to be humble in that, right?
I'm going to throw this to you. I hold Mayor Walker on this show very accountable, and some say that I am somewhat critical of
I
what
would
she's
agree
doing.
with that position.
Okay, so I'm going to throw it to you.
Yes.
And then play devil's advocate with me. This is the attorney and you coming out.
It's not devil's advocate. It is. That is my position.
Okay, so this is me saying to you that I want you to challenge my why. Okay.
Yeah.
So when Mayor Walker votes no on a lot of projects,
I know, yes,
she's diminishing the housing stock that's available. And if the housing stock in Fry Springs or anywhere else, if we have more supply in the market, that's going to help solve our demand issues. Yes. With a lack of housing supply, it's going to be the who's and the wealthy that gets the housing. And it's going to drive the impoverished to outer counties, furthering the wealth gap, furthering a homogenous community, and making Charlottesville this white bastion playground. Yeah. I think when Mayor Walker votes no every time on that, that's what we're getting. Even Michael Payne has said, and Michael Payne ran Mayor Walker's campaign to get Mayor Walker elected. Even Michael Payne, a current Charlottesville city councilor, said, Mayor Walker, we have to start voting yes for these projects. I'm going to get out of the way. Nicole, you go anywhere you want.
Yeah, so Mayor Walker, when I was in real estate development doing consulting for all these developments, she was just such a thorn in their side. Like, they did not take her seriously. They, did not. I think she is an amazing voice to have on council because she is giving voice to people who haven't had voice. And she is making these people who have had so much power in our community. She's
blowing up right now. Okay.
Oh, okay.
No, keep going.
They have to now think about her perspective, right? And that is awesome. And so there was a lot of people that said, like, oh, we have an activist coming into the council. It's going to, degrade, or, things are going to get out of control. And I was like, this is after August 11th and 12th. Like, there is nobody better fit to listen and speak to those voices that have literally went through trauma, right? Like, somebody died in our community. A terrorist attack took place, a racially motivated one. Mayor Walker was the person to have to speak and listen to that. No, it would have been complete chaos if there was anyone else, even more than it was, because, of course there was chaos because we're all traumatized, right? So she's an amazing voice to have on council. That being said, I'm a developer. She has said no to every project except for one.
Of yours?
Not one, no.
Oh, just that you've seen.
Not one of mine. Just she said no to it. Just one that I've seen. I think any project, whether it's market rate or not, like even the Carlton Views one that was affordable housing, I think she said no to that. So it was just one that she said yes to. So I understand. This is my livelihood. I get it. She has said no, and it drives me nuts. But I think, I remember listening to her give a talk, and she mentioned 2 books. And so, of course, I picked up those 2 books. And one of them was The Debt, What America Owes Black Americans. And it was amazing, and you should pick that up.
Okay.
But the other one was Good to Great. And so I think her perspective is just, it's not enough anymore. Like these little things that we say address the issue are not enough. Like we need to do more heavy lifting to really come to terms with the fact that, we've had such a racially unequal society.
I respect everything you said. Diminishing the housing stock is not the solution to creating more affordable housing, however.
Yes, and I agree with that. I think, and I understand very kind of viscerally how we need more housing. And we need to approve more housing in order to get, some prices to fall, and some people in our community that need to be here rather than out in Greene County or other counties.
Fluvanna, Waynesboro.
Yes. And so I do understand that. But so I kind of, one good example is there was a project out in Albemarle County, and their affordable housing was, they had, it was, I think it might have been, it was 5% or 5 to 15%. I'm not sure. 5 to 15% affordable housing.
Of the total project.
Okay. And but it could be, affordable housing was defined as up to 120% of AMI, or area medium income. And it was only for 5 years.
And then they go to market rate.
5 years, 5 years. So at that time, we could have had the same sort of debate of they're doing something, that we need the housing. It's very hard to land on what is enough, right? It never really is enough until we house everyone, right? So I think her perspective is valid, and I wouldn't want everyone to always vote no on things like that with that perspective, because then you're right, we wouldn't get any housing, and that we need that for everyone in the community. We need more housing. But at the same time, I think it's a completely, I don't have to agree with everyone in order to respect that opinion. I think it's a very valid opinion, and I think it's a great perspective to have on council, and we need that.
We're going to do, I could spend an entire hour on this topic, but we're not going to do it. We're going to talk development. Scott Elworth, the trial attorney from Virginia Beach, is watching the program.
Okay.
You have friends at UVA Law School watching the program. Joanne Cole, welcome to the show. Give it a like and a share on any of the 12 Facebook pages, and put comments in the comment section if you want to relay commentary to Nicole. This is what I'd like to go down the road for.
Okay.
I'd like to talk about, I have so many topics, okay? This is a passion. You're a lot smarter than I am. I learn from the guests that I get to sit next to in this setting. It's my favorite part of what I do here. Let's just talk Charlottesville. Okay. So you have a passion for building missing middle-income housing.
Oh, yeah.
We have this middle-income housing for millennials that is clearly missing. A lot of developers, we work with a lot of them here on this show, are encouraged or pushed in the direction of building single-family R1 that's at a price point that's pretty high. And it's not because they don't want to try something else. It's because this is what the zoning allows. They are running a for-profit business and have to make money. And this is the clearest path from point A to point B with the least amount of headaches. So that's safe to say. Do you agree or disagree?
Okay. Yes, I would change the wording a little bit.
Okay, how so?
Oh, okay. So that's Well, I agree with that, and nobody has. I mean, I came into doing real estate development very specifically wanting to do something different.
Yeah, you wanted to have an impact.
See.
Yeah.
So that is always on my mind, and we just got a 65 unit development approved by Tandem Friends by Fifth Street Station, that side of town, and it is very. Unfortunately, looks like every other development, and so I just am so not without trying and taking tons of risk and spending way too much, So I understand that even somebody who is trying to do something different is kind of pigeonholed into building these large, expensive houses because our by right zoning hasn't been changed since 1980. And then our rezoning process is just broken. It's better in Albemarle County, but it's still, broken. So I understand that, yeah, so you're in a business and you're trying to just move forward even.
You're trying to cut the sales cycle down.
Yeah, so one thing I would wanted to parse out, and I think this is a good topic to talk about, is it's not even so much that you're a for-profit business and so you want to make money, right? Like, I was thinking it more as, what I think you need to understand in real estate development is, in order to build anything, right? If I want to build, the roads in my development, purchase the property, all of that costs, that's money. And so, 99.999% of developments are funded by banks, right? You have some investment money to fill in some of the weak spots. So, it's not that I really want to make money. I want it to be, funded by the bank, right? And the bank will not accept a project, will not fund a project that doesn't have, it's different for every type of project, but in an apartment building, it's very simple to think about, is you need to show to the bank that you have your rent would consist of, would make up 1.3%. If you multiply your rent by 1.3, it is more than your cost.
Of course.
Your debt service.
They want to know you can cover the loan.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I have to show that I'm making money.
You got to cover the note.
I have to pay the bank back for the debt that I am taking on to build the project. Right?
Totally get it.
So it's not so much that I want to make money. It's so much as I want it to be accepted by a bank that will then build it. That's very, I remember when we were going through Hogwaller or Rootstock Farm, as we changed it, the name to, I remember there was how much affordable housing can you do, and it was all right, we're going to figure this out. And figuring it out was literally sending an email to the bank and being will you accept our loan if we do this, if we have this requirement, right? So I want to parse that out, developers do want to make money, and oh my gosh, we should hold them accountable because they like making money, and it's kind of a black box of how much money are they making. But it is so much about, this just cannot get built if it doesn't show that there's for profit. And so, there's things we can do. There's VHDA loans that you can take out that have less of a debt to equity ratio. So, you need to show that you're making less money in that sense. And so there's some options to sort of lessen that. But I think that drives a lot of what you can build.
So step one, educate us. Step one is putting a business model together, presenting the business model to a bank and a banker to finance the business model. And that business model may come in with Nicole, the conscious capitalist, Nicole, the social entrepreneur, Nicole, the person committed to bettering Charlottesville and Central Virginia and leaving her footprint in a better place. She may have a business model in place with X amount of affordable housing units, and the bank's going to come back and say, nah, dog. Too many affordable housing units. You need to be more focused on keeping this in the black and generating more revenue.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that is a reality. I'm trying to think of ways to get around that. There's some.
Well, yeah, you know what the way that's around that is? You need to figure out how you can get $500 million, $250 million, or $100 million.
Right.
When you figure that out, can you tell me?
Right. So, but even the people that have billions of dollars, which exist,
especially in Charlottesville,
they look.
They want an ROI.
Yes, exactly. So even they are leveraging and going through traditional bank loans.
Everyone's using leverage.
Yes, and they should, right? So, but the interesting thing is that they don't necessarily have to. They have so much.
Well, no, but it's the opportunity cost of their money and how it can apply to something else.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's cheap money.
Be right.
It would be no-brainer. Okay, so you get the business model approved by the bank and the loan. What's the next step? You go to planning commission?
Oh, yeah. So you're saying, so I
you have the money. You have the funding.
Yes, and I have this apartment complex that I'm proposing.
Yeah.
Well, we did that.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then the problem with when you go through council or board of supervisors, and they want to require affordable housing, and that makes sense because you want to hold the applicant or the developer accountable. But if I tell the bank that I'm required to build at a certain rent, then that bank is going to be like, no, you're not going to be able to pay us back. We have, people's money that we're using. We have to be able to pay people's money and their interest, so we can't fund you. So, I mean, I don't know. So in other words, if I can get bank approval, right, for my lending, and then I can choose to lower my rent, but it's the requirement of affordable housing that doesn't allow me to get funded. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
I can say, once I get funded and it's built, I can say, oh, I'm going to lower my rent. And the thought process is, well, then, even if I have lower rents, the bank can take it over and increase rents and then, whatever. So
I'm in the process.
The
I totally can relate to what I'm in the process.
But we should require it. So
of refinancing the portfolio in this building.
Okay.
And the bank, I'm not going to say which bank it is, the most favorable terms, a local bank, has the ability every year, every 2 years, every 3 years, to assess the rent rolls, adjust the rate, and potentially ask to open my books anytime they want. That's a motherfucker.
Whoa, man.
I straight up say that for it all the time.
Man.
I totally understand the position that you're in of making.
Is Bankman watching right now?
Probably
or
is.
Women.
He watches the show all the time.
It is. They have the.
They have you by everything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You're like, well,
not to make them the bad guy, because they also have to pay.
They have the risk.
Right.
Yeah, they have the risk. Okay,
right.
So I totally get it. So you go, so this is what Neil says. Neil Williamson is watching.
Yeah, great.
He says, Mayor Walker said this. Please relay this to Nicole.
Okay.
Quote, this is bad, and I continue to express concern that the economic analysis included for a profit margin with the developer. She said that until we change the conversation, we are never going to fix this. She said that if you're willing to house just a few people at a time, that's not the direction I support. Basically alluding to the developers should not be making as much money as they should. My response to that, and I'm going to throw it to you, and you can go any direction you want, is folks like you and folks like us, in a lot of ways, are taking the risk, creating the jobs, building the housing stock, the offices for rent. And that's having a trickle-down impact that's making the community better. You disagree with that? I see by your facial expressions.
I don't disagree with you. I exist in real estate, and the culture of real estate is such this. I am the hero doing everything for the world, and I think there needs to be some more humility in real estate development. But you are right. I mean, so I feel both things, right? I would talk to a real estate developer, and I would be like, yeah, we just finished a house, and it was hard. I mean, it was a slog. There were so many costs that we didn't necessarily expect. And so you want to make money, but you also, you're scared that there's going to be some unknown costs come up. So, this isn't always about just like, I need to make more and more money. This is about like, oh my gosh, I need to pay my guys or women, right? So I understand the bravado behind the feeling of I'm taking on so much risk, I'm doing so much, and the feeling of you have to go through so much to make some of this stuff happen. You kind of have to be crazy.
You have to be nuts. My business is 12 years old. I've worked 70 hours a week. I've taken one vacation in 12 years.
Yeah.
I've taken obscene risk.
Right.
Like risk that the type of person, if they were taking these risks, they would be not sleeping. This dude that's directing the show is getting a hefty raise every single year, which he knows and he's grateful for. He just bought a house for himself. That he, living by himself in the urban ring. Okay. Like, it's obscene. It is nerve-wracking.
Yeah, and so I feel that, and very literally feel that. So I get it. But at the same time, I do think there needs to be a little bit of humility in real estate development, and to look at these things with a fresh perspective. Like it's not all, oh my gosh, woe is me. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of these people are making a lot of money, right? And so there are also more creative things that these people could be doing. And anyway, to go back to what Mayor Walker said about making money, I wouldn't say making money is bad. I don't think that's a.
I'm going to straight up say it's not bad.
Yeah, I don't think making money is bad. I think that the entrepreneurship can be. So I think we're really blowing up and going really broad, but
I love it.
To think about capitalism, I kind of think of capitalism as kind of, if we think about economic freedom, and if everyone's just free, or has less regulations and we're free to do what they.
That's what I want. I'm a libertarian.
Right. So a libertarian. Okay, great. Let's talk about libertarianism. So you also have to think, well, if people are free, what culture are they free in? Like, if we are free in the 1950s, right, then that's freedom for some, but not all.
Okay.
And we have a culture which values, old, white men, right? And so it's harder, not just policies that are in place that make African Americans, women not free, right? Not just policies that very explicitly make them not free, but there's also just a culture of not being accepting and not associating certain traits with success and intelligence and acumen and professionalism, right? So I have this very schizophrenic feeling towards capitalism because if we're idealistic about what capitalism can be, it can be everyone's free and everyone and anyone can make money and make a life for themselves and their family, and that's always a good thing. But we've never really had that, right? So we have to kind of be, again, humble about what capitalism has produced and for whom, right? So again, the humility needs to be there.
I respect that.
This bravado of, oh my gosh, I have the world on my shoulders, right? Like Atlas, is not really the reality on the ground. As much as it's hard for that person.
Nicole Scro is basically telling me to pump the brakes, Jerry Miller. And I respect that.
Pump the brakes, Jerry Miller.
Pump the brakes, Jerry Miller. Pete Cameron is giving you some props right now.
Okay.
You're giving love from Shannon Slyfield. Coy Barefoot, welcome to the program. We got a number of attorneys watching the program as we speak. All right, I'm going to throw this to you because this is a mission and something that's very important to your business.
Yes.
Okay. The concept of white flight.
Okay.
In Charlottesville, Virginia. So what we saw in the city of Charlottesville was a number of white families sprinting for Albemarle County for housing stock that had larger plots of land. You could build larger homes on it. The quintessential white picket fence, cul-de-sac, neighborhood block party, play in the backyard, have a little slice of heaven, the American dream. And the city of Charlottesville had to rebuttal, counterpoint this white flight by changing its zoning. And its zoning in the city of Charlottesville then went very heavy on R1 single-family housing zoning in the community, which at this point, over half the housing stock in a 10.27 square mile city is for single-family R1 homes.
Right.
This R1 zoning is undoubtedly creating an affordable housing crisis because the homes that are in Charlottesville City are only for one family to live in, and they're often very expensive. Everything I said is analytical and true here. This concept of white flight in Charlottesville City having more than half of its stock as R1 zoning, how is it impacting Charlottesville, Virginia on, let's see, Monday, March 2nd, 2020?
So the question is, how does R1 impact Charlottesville, Virginia right now?
How does restrictive zoning?
Yeah, I mean, well, anyone. Yeah, I mean, you've talked about zoning a lot on here, so I don't know. Of course, you're restricting how much can be built, and so that's if you don't have enough houses for people to live in, then and demand doesn't have anywhere to go, then prices go up, and the wealthy people are able to buy the houses that are available, and so the people that aren't as wealthy
drive till you qualify.
Yes, drive and live outside of Charlottesville and drive to work if they work here or just right. I mean, so that's yes, that is happening all across the city right now, and it's impacting a lot of people, and so this is a very real issue. Like I often have done advocacy for development projects or have my own development projects and do the advocacy for them. And so I'm often talking to homeowners, and there's just there's always, and even council people and board of supervisors, and there's always this like, what's the rush? We need to analyze this. It's just gonna have such a big impact if we make any changes. And I wish people would look outside themselves and understand why there is such a rush, right? Like the urgency of the matter and the impact of waiting, right? And so that is not really felt or understood by a lot of homeowners who have the ear of council people or supervisors or supervisors or council people that are often risk averse, and they hear homeowners and they're like, oh, well, you know what? There's always an excuse like this isn't the right location. This, well,
I'll cut to the chase. The homeowners are often the ones that go to the polls and vote.
Right. But even some studies show that the voters, there was actually Kelsey Schlein, who is going to be here. She showed me this article, and it was a study that was done in Massachusetts. And it like did a tallying of every single person who spoke at a public hearing, and what they found, and it was like over the course of at least
a lot more tenants were speaking
over the course of at least 5 years. A lot more homeowners, right?
Homeowners.
So what they found was it was not a very diverse group of people who were speaking. They were all homeowners, but even so, they didn't represent the voting bloc, right? So so even compared to the voting bloc, they didn't represent that. They are just loud at that particular 1 hour window, right? And so, I sympathize as you're a council person, as a board supervisor, you're hearing a loud voice that says they're your constituents saying, we don't want this, I don't want this. And so you're like, all right, well, this isn't the right location. We just need to see less density. This is too much. And so there's always a reason why. And the urgency of the matter is never felt or heard in that conversation, right? There are literally people moving and being displaced and forced out of their homes, and that's happening right now. And that, like I often think about like 11 people, or in my project in 999, I often say like 11 people would have, like we're trying to build, missing middle housing. So there'd be, a price point that we don't often see, would have to live outside of Albemarle County if not for this. Like you go tell those 11 people that, right? Like I need you to feel the urgency of the matter, because I know you feel the neighbors. They talk to you all the time. Like you hear that voice. I know that's there, and that's, should be listened to. But at the same time, I need you to also feel the urgency of the matter for those other people. And I try to get, some renters that are looking for homes to come speak, and, millennials who are, starting families here, who can't find a house here. No longer can you buy a house for like $90,000 or $150,000, that like you used to.
That's a perfect segue into a home you put on my radar on Twitter.
Yes. Yes.
You know the home I'm talking about. Did
yeah,
you see
you've
it go
been blowing
bananas?
Up about this.
Yeah. Did you see that?
You've gone bananas,
Dude,
Jerry.
it's gone. It's been shared by over 300 Facebook pages, and we put it up this morning. Okay, so you put this on my radar on Twitter. Everything originates on Twitter.
Apparently.
There's a lot of knowledge on Twitter.
Yeah,
So I'm going to throw the specs to you, and you go anywhere you want.
Okay. God.
This home is 820 square feet. And guys, go to my Facebook page. It's the third post down right now on my Facebook page. It's a very
beautiful house.
It's beautiful.
You did a great job with
I'm not hating on it. I'm just going to do the specs. I think the remodel is exceptional. I love the modern gray. I love the loft. I love the location.
Yeah.
I love everything about it except for one thing.
The price.
Yes.
I know.
Okay, so I'm going to throw it to you and get out of your way. It's an open-ended question, and then I'm going to follow up. Two people at a bar shooting the shit from one analytical mind to another analytical mind. $379,000 asking price for an 820 square foot, 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, quote, tiny house, end quote, in Belmont. Price per square foot, $462.20 effing cents. $462.20.
That's double what our price per square foot on our house is.
We just bought a home.
More than double.
Okay. We just sold I just sold my house in Redfields.
Congratulations.
Okay. Sold my house in Redfields. It was about $1.60 a square. Going to the east side of town to Glenmore, getting something that's in like $1.30 a square. This is $462.20.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it? Yes. Okay, so the question is, that's crazy.
Open-ended, anywhere you want to go on that topic, because you're a huge proponent of tiny homes.
Well, yeah. So I posted that and got it on your radar.
Yeah, and went bananas.
Went bananas about it because I again often talk to, so we've got a project coming before the Board of Supervisors on Wednesday. And we're trying to build 11 small houses.
That's why I'm going there.
I know, 800 square feet to more, 1,600 square feet. Okay, so...
This was the door for you to go into that.
Yes. So I often talk to people who live in the houses around that, area, and they live in like 5,000 square foot houses. I mean, these houses are beautiful, but they're ginormous.
This is the Dunlora neighborhood.
Yes.
Okay.
And so they're like, oh my gosh, 800 square feet.
That's their first floor.
Let me clutch my pearls. I'm sorry. That's gasp, right? And so I posted that because I thought there are so many houses in the city of Charlottesville that are 800 to 1,200 to 900, that can be livable, right? Yeah. That being said, so anyway, the point is you can build an 800 square foot that can be livable and wonderful and beautiful. That being said, that price point is ridiculous. It's very high. Again, it's like more than double our house that we have on the market. So
to put in perspective, your price per square is $230 a square?
Yeah, it's like $205.
$205 a square. Okay.
Yeah, so it's that is a very expensive price per square foot. And I think again, we're seeing this because there isn't housing.
There's no stock.
There's no I think we're the only house that's for sale in all of Woolen Mills neighborhood. Like the supply is so limited. It changed, but the supply is so limited that's what we have is these houses that are wonderful and beautiful.
So yours are quick math, back of the napkin math. Yours are about $195K in that vicinity.
What is that? Oh,
your homes that you're building here. That's going to the Board of Supervisors.
No,
okay.
It would be $280.
Okay.
To $380, and the reason why the math doesn't translate from the house we built to the house is because even if you lower your square foot, it's not a perfect ratio because you still have your roof, you still have your
Understood.
Right. So it's not a perfect ratio.
Okay.
So that's why it's 280, not 190 in your napkin math.
280 is still amazing.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
But it's also not amazing. Right? Like I have such a schizophrenic thing because I want to do so much, and yet we can really do so little right now. Like I can, we had proposed small houses at the 65 unit, residential by Tandem Friends Galaxy, and that was shot down, right? And so this is our second time, and who knows what's going to happen on Wednesday. And so, oh my gosh, I can't even build a small house like, let alone what we really need, which is more density, right? So it's like, oh my God, like it just seems like such an uphill battle. But anyway, to get back to what you were saying about, a lot of people have told me, it's interesting because when I first proposed small houses, a lot of developers and builders were like, oh, like you're not going to want to build that.
Why? Because the margin's not there.
Yeah, then you don't have the margins, and you're kind of like, why would I build 30 houses and make less money and build 15 houses? And
the whole saying, work smart, not hard.
Yes. And a lot of people have literally said, why would you? Blah, blah. And now they're like, oh, are you going to get those lots? Are you going to sell those lots? Like, we would love to build that. And I'm like, that's hilarious.
Vultures. That's literally what they're doing.
Well, I think a lot has changed in the market. There's a little bit of a slowing in the high price market, kind of. I don't know.
North of $1 million is slowing, no doubt.
Yeah. So, and there's this kind of like, we all know. Like all the builders know that at some point we can't continue like this, right? There needs to be somewhat affordable houses available. So now the narrative has totally changed to, oh my gosh, you're going to build small houses and it's going to be $1 million for that house. And the point is like, listen, if we don't build any housing, then I guess like you could sell that house for $380 versus like the 280 houses could be sold for $380, and if we don't build any housing,
because there's no supply and the demand's still full throttle.
Yeah, but I just want to like emphasize the win. And if I'm able to build a house and sell it for $280, a new house detached for $280 in Albemarle County, that is such a win.
Yeah,
like I'm gonna take that win, right? Like that is amazing for that family.
I would put a red cape on you and walk around next to you for a week, hyping you and promoting you if you're able to make that happen.
Yeah.
Seriously.
So I know there's so many issues. It's complex, and a lot of people say, okay, let's talk about this. A lot of people tell me
traffic congestion.
Well, of course, but a lot of people tell me, it's not really going to be affordable because somebody's going to buy that house and then flip it for more money, and you need permanent affordability, right? So let's talk about permanent affordability.
How could you do it in perpetuity?
By using the
land trust
model.
Okay,
right?
So the land trust model.
So let's talk about the land trust model.
You owning the land.
So a land trust model just means that you put some sort of restriction, like a deed of covenant, on the land saying, you can't sell this for more than some percentage of the AMI or something. I don't know.
Okay.
Whatever. And so I am very skeptical of the land trust model, right? Like I do not.
Interesting.
I am not a proponent of the land trust model.
Why is that? I'm going to slide this a little closer so everybody hears your brilliance here.
Okay.
Why are you not a proponent of the land trust model?
Yeah, so for one, I want to say I think the director of the land trust, what's her name? Elizabeth. So she's wonderful.
Okay. Thomas Jefferson Community Land Trust we're talking?
Yeah, so the executive director there, she is so wonderful. I like her a lot.
Greg Slater and our friend Keith Smith.
Yeah, but the reason why I'm skeptical of the land trust model is because when we talk about affordable housing, for better or worse, right now, the context of affordable housing is there are many minorities who have been, exploited and pushed into the situation they're in where they are grasping for affordable housing, right? So when we talk about affordable housing now, hopefully one day this won't be so intertwined, but right now in the context of talking about affordable housing, we're talking about racial disparity as well, or other. So I think that because there's been such exploitation of racial minorities throughout our history, not just slavery, but you had redlining and a million other versions of redlining.
Sure.
We can talk about that a long time. So all of those programs took away the agency of these minorities. They didn't have the ability to have a fair and like they couldn't, like one scheme was to, they weren't allowed, they had all these racial deed restrictions, and so they could only buy in certain areas, and white landowners would buy all that land and then rent it to African Americans, and then would exploit the rent and increase the rent. And so I feel like minorities have not had agency in our market, and the land trust model can bring racial minorities agency in that if it's run by them, if they are ownership and they have bought into that model and they understand, like they are the force behind that model, then it is them owning the land in perpetuity and passing it on to what they see as the next generation that needs that model to be in perpetuity. And that can be wonderful. In Richmond, they have their land trust named after an African-American woman who started a bank, and it's much more integrated into the city, and so it has more power there, and so it operates different than it does here. But what I don't see here is that buy-in from our community, and the land trust model takes away the agency of that homeowner in some way, right? They're not the owners of the land.
You're talking about autonomy, and you're talking about, keep going.
Yeah, it is autonomy. It is control and agency, and again, like, I'm not the one to make this decision, right? Like, if the African-American community in Charlottesville takes on the land trust model and sees it as their own, then that is awesome and wonderful. But I don't see that happening, and I think it's an issue to raise. Because for so long, we've been like, oh, we need urban renewal was pitched not as this, what we see now as this, totally inappropriate racial, disparity that resulted from urban renewal. It was pitched as this great thing for African American communities, right? Like, it was like, oh, it's going to clear up communities, and then we'll be,
And it resulted in 144 families in Vinegar Hill losing their businesses and their homes and put into public housing.
Right. So we just need to be aware of this, history of pitching these things that take away agency from people that haven't had agency. So anyway, it's complicated. It can be a good thing. I just haven't seen it being bought in by the community here.
I don't see any other solution. And I'm going to throw it back to you. The Maggie Walker Community Land Trust is the one you reference in Richmond. Mm-hmm. I don't see any other solution in the city of Charlottesville or Albemarle County for creating affordable housing outside of a community land trust model, except for the city of Charlottesville and Albemarle County themselves as municipalities owning the land. And the city of Charlottesville and Albemarle County does not want to be in the real estate game. And a perfect example of that is the miserable tower that we have on the downtown mall in the Landmark Hotel, where the city of Charlottesville undoubtedly could have sprung in at auction and purchased it before the extorting emperor of empty lots, Johnny Dewberry, bought it himself. How else can we create affordable housing from a land trust standpoint? Because do you think Albemarle County and City of Charlottesville want to get into real estate ownership?
No. I've heard talks. I mean, the CHRA has taken on a few projects that are really exciting and doing some great things. So no and yes. But I think you're right. I mean, I'm not disagreeing that the land trust can be a solution to affordable housing. I'm just bringing up that, I have to think about this as like, what am I going to promote and what am I going to partner with?
Well, it's how you started the show. You're always asking why and what if and how could this unfold poorly?
Yeah. So I just, I have to think about practically what I would do in my certain situations. But, the land trust built some beautiful houses on Nassau Street, and those families have houses now that they wouldn't necessarily have without the land trust. So that's awesome. That's wonderful. So I'm not trying to bash it. I'm just trying to bring up an issue.
It's legit. I respect it.
So, and it's one that I personally struggle with when I think about who I'm going to partner with. And I think that, again, we just need to celebrate, like if there's a family that can now purchase that $280,000 house that we're building on Rio, hopefully we build on Rio, that's something to celebrate, that family has that house, right? We're not going to sell these to investors who are then going to rent it out. They're going to sell it to families. So I think that family now has the autonomy to do what they will with the house. But it's another thing about this is like very, very like people, these families who can't really afford to live elsewhere and then find a house. Like the Habitat model doesn't have the land trust model of restricting the resale.
Take Southwood on Fifth Street Extended.
So you don't see these families really resell. Like it's kind of it's a misnomer in the sense that this doesn't really happen. These families are happy to have a home and they have to resell it if they like move jobs or something, but you don't see them like exploiting the system in the way that we are so concerned with. So I think not putting the restriction isn't as important as people say it is. So I think the autonomy is more important. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
No. I think that's totally legit. Neil Williamson says Charlottesville and Albemarle guys are in the game via investment in Habitat Southwood project. That's a good point, Neil. I don't see Albemarle County and the city of Charlottesville, just playing devil's advocate with you, Neil, going down the road of more real estate development ownership as a municipality.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Mike Parisi is watching the program. Says, I'm loving the show.
Okay.
What are Nicole's thoughts on how and whether the market can supply actual low-income housing for sub 80% AMI?
Yeah, that's always a hard one because, again, it goes back to the bank. If I can't show that I'm making a certain amount of revenue,
you can't do it.
I can't build it. I can't get the money to construct it. And so it's really hard to build less than 80% AMI, maybe 60% AMI. Depending on the situation. Like another thing about this is these are so project dependent and you could do more with some projects and less with others. And so it's hard, but yeah, I will say like it is hard to have a market solution to under 60% AMI. It's really hard and I'm really trying. So I get it. That being said, I think like 60% to 120%, the market could be doing so much more to address that, right? Like we can be doing so much more for the 60 to 120. So like I think of Mike Payne, who often emphasizes public housing, which is great, and he often emphasizes under 60% AMI, and that is important. And that's where the housing needs assessment emphasize that those people that are cost burdened, we see the most in the under 60% AMI. So we really should focus on them because there's more of those people, right? So that's very important to focus on. And there should be public subsidies in housing, and we need to do that in order to address that. But I think that we should also think about market solutions because otherwise we're going to have public housing and then really, really expensive housing, and we're not going to have anything to address those people, right? And you don't want that.
It's the quintessential Austin, Texas barbell graph, where if you look at the barbell graph, you see super wealthy on the one side of the barbell, the weight. And on the other side of the barbell, you see the super poor. And in the center of the graph, you see this flat line. And it's very difficult to get from the very poor aspect of the barbell graph to the wealthy aspect of the barbell graph.
The way that this thought process comes out is, I remember you had Ann Malick on this show, actually, and I remember she was talking to the other candidate.
Steve Harvey.
Yes, and they were talking about affordable housing and proffers. And it was... proffers were like $20,000 per unit. Yeah. Which is insane.
Which is
I don't know how you
ridiculous.
can build anything, let alone something affordable. And her response was, well, those cash proffers are exempt for those homes that are affordable. And that's great. But then that results in the inequality of all you're going to have is affordable housing and
you're building
really,
poor
really
communities.
expensive housing.
Yeah.
So that's not a tenable solution to housing affordability, in more general sense. So
this is an interesting
that's
statistic.
How it plays out when you're only focused on affordable housing.
How's your afternoon look? Is it good? Can we go a little bit longer? I'm finding this inspiring, and I have so much I got to throw to you. Do you have time?
I have a little bit of time, but what time is it?
I want to keep throwing. It's 1:35.
Okay.
And it's flown by, right?
Yes.
Okay, can I keep throwing stuff to you?
Okay.
Okay.
What time did we get here?
12:30. So it's been an hour and 5 minutes. You're killing it.
Okay.
You're crushing it.
Okay, yeah. So wait, one thing we have to talk about is women in real estate.
Let's talk about it right now.
Okay, we have to talk about that.
I don't want to skip it.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, we could talk for another hour about that.
The lack thereof?
Yeah, so there's no women in real estate development. And I guess one thing I I respect any women.
Are you the only female developer in Charlottesville?
There's one other, Denise LaCour.
Okay.
She's amazing. And it was funny because when I started, they were like, "You're going to be the next Denise LaCour." And I thought that was such a wonderful compliment because she is such an amazing person. But it also made me sad because there really should be more than one person, one woman to like, all right, like, of course I'm going to be the only other woman that you know in this field.
Especially in a world-class city that bills itself as a world-class city. Yeah,
so we talked about this in the beginning of the program a little bit, in that the landscape we build around us is based on the vision of white men because they're the only ones in real estate development, and that's really sad. Right? Like, so but anyway, to kind of zoom back up to I really want to talk about this because I've talked to white men about this a lot, and this analogy has helped. So my parents go through this, right? So we're going on a long drive to our extended family, right? It's like a 5-hour drive. And my dad is driving, and my mom is in the passenger seat.
She's sitting shotgun.
And yes, she's sitting shotgun. She's in the passenger seat, and she falls asleep almost immediately.
Okay.
Always. So we're driving on the highway, and inevitably on Long Island, somebody cuts my dad off, trying to get in the other lane to merge again and get ahead of him and
get on the GW bridge.
Yes, whatever. And so, of course, my dad's very, very diplomatic person, very even keeled, but it's like, oh God, what is this? I can't believe this guy, whatever. Right? And my mom wakes up and is like, oh, David, like, what are you doing? And the reason I bring this up is because my mom was asleep, didn't see what happened, right? All she sees is my dad having this reaction to somebody.
And of course,
right?
It's his fault.
Right. It's his fault. I can't believe he did this. Right. You can emphasize, right? You've driven and...
This is my everyday life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Everyday life.
White men tend to emphasize with it. I've been in this situation. So what you need to understand is that's how, when you see women or minorities express passion or express emotion for more whatever, like literally whatever, you have to think the white man isn't seeing me getting cut off every day. Like I live like every single day there's something that gets brought up because I'm a woman reading in this.
Every single day you're saying you're being marginalized in some way because you're a female in a male-dominated space.
Yes, every single day. So when I react to something...
The concept of white male fragility.
Yeah, so it is because I think we have to understand, again, white men need to be more humble about, they just don't see me getting cut off. You're the passenger in the seat that fell asleep that didn't see me getting cut off every day. And all you're seeing is my reaction and not the action against me, right? I don't know. It's what it's helped because the women can be like, "Oh yeah, I get that." So that has moved the needle for some people I've talked to. But so anyway, I think that it's important for white men to try to understand, well, what was it? What was the cutting off that happened to get us to the situation where we're seeing? How
does somebody like you, who is knowledgeable, educated, comes from 3 generations of developing and home building.
Yeah.
Someone who
very
is
privileged,
credentialed, privileged.
Yes.
Access to capital that others don't.
Yeah.
How does someone like you impact the ecosystem to A, create more females that are developers in the space? Even more importantly, perhaps, create more minority developers.
So I often think about this and I'm like, well, I'm really not the person to talk to because...
More so than me.
Well, yes. Yes. That's true.
You're a woman developer.
But what I'm trying to say is, so I'm really doggedly independent and I was kind of like, well, this is going to... And I'm... Okay, so we're building Galaxy, that project. And so we're naming the roads after...
this is a Tandem Friends school project.
Yes, we're naming the roads after female scientists.
Love it.
Yes, it's so wonderful. So I've been reading about female scientists. And science is even more of a male-dominated field, or maybe they're the same. And they're always... The way they talk about things is kind of like... I know one, she was the first... female African-American in space. And she was kind of like, well, I knew I wanted to be an astronaut, so I guess I had to be the first. It was kind of like, this was what I was going to do. So it was going to happen, right? And so a lot of women who are breaking the mold, entering into fields, it was always kind of like, well, this is what I was going to do, so I was going to do it. What makes me more sad is those women that didn't have, that's a weird thing to have. Like, I'm going to be, it's not everyone has that dogged sense of what they're going to do. So what makes me more sad is those women who were pushed into other fields that they didn't necessarily want to go in. If they were pushed out of science, the loss of those minds in those fields. And I would love to talk to those women that why they didn't wind up in the field that they would have liked to be in.
Well, the only way to solve this is just you doing it.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely part of it.
That's all you can control.
That's all, yeah. Well, yeah. So when you see more women doing that, then that obviously helps. I think representation definitely helps. So that's definitely a thing that should be done. But yeah, I would love, anyway.
A lot of comments coming in.
Okay.
Can I throw questions to you?
Yeah, but we've got to put
Okay, how about to 56? Can we go to 56?
Okay.
42.
Okay.
And we'll go rapid. We don't have to go rapid fire, but we'll pick up the tempo a little bit.
Okay.
This comment is coming in via the Twitter sphere.
Okay.
Dairy Market and Dairy Central. Chris Henry, Stony Point Design.
Sure.
Great developer. Good reputation in town. Chris Henry's been on this show. Nothing but love for Chris Henry. I'm going to give you a couple of metrics and get your thoughts on this. A 1-bedroom studio in Dairy Central. Guys, it's the old Monticello Dairy building on Preston Avenue. She knows it. I'm just giving some background.
Okay.
A 1-bedroom studio apartment, 900 square feet, $1,200 per month rent. That's set at 80% AMI.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
That is freaking crazy. A 2-person household making $57K would qualify for 80% AMI on that.
Yep.
What did 900 square feet studio, $1,200 a month. What comes to mind?
Yeah, I remember looking at the housing needs assessment done by Albemarle County. So that was more recent than the Charlottesville one. And seeing that 80% AMI meant that a 1-bedroom or 1-person household could afford, which means that they're only paying, 20% of their housing to, it was like something like $1,300 was 80% AMI for rent. And I was like, that's insane.
That's nuts.
That is absolutely insane. So, and so I remember being before about 999 when we had apartments as part of the project, and I was like, well, 80% AMI is $1,300, rent, and they were kind of like, well, that's not what we want to be affordable, and I was like, I know, but that's where we are.
That's what the model allows.
That's what the model allows, but also if we look at the Rock and Roll building, what building is that? The building that was just built behind the Blue Moon Diner.
Yeah. The one with the mural on it.
Yeah. Those rents were like...
Even higher.
They were like $1,600 for a studio or something nuts.
Or the can companies who did the project off Barracks Road where the BB&T Bank used to be. I think that's like... there are studios that are even higher than that a month.
Yeah, and they paid boatload of money for the land, so I can imagine
that's why
kind of had it. I mean, I don't know if that's why. Again, these are always such a black box as to what the specifics are, but I don't want to criticize the dairy because that's the reality of the market right now. Like, I mean, it's just insane, and it's the land, it's the construction costs, it's the bank. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, again, it's really hard because I really want to push back on some of these developers because I know that not everyone is acting in good faith. But that being said, it's so project dependent that it's really hard. That's why empathize with Nakai Walker, right? Mayor Walker, who's always like, well, we need more, and it's true. But at the same time, if our alternative is not to build anything, then, oh my gosh, we're going to be stuck here forever. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, the answer to the dairy problem of that rent being so high is we need to build more so that we can relax rents, right? So,
follow-up question.
Sure.
We'll pick up the tempo even more.
Okay.
How is Dairy Market and Dairy Central going to impact, in your opinion, 10th and Page's neighborhood?
Yeah, so I remember talking to Mike Payne about this.
Michael Payne, city councilor.
Yeah, when we were talking about, in the context of talking about Rootstock Farm or Hogwaller and how that might impact the way that dairy is impacting 10th and Page, Hogwaller area or Lower Belmont or whatever it's called. And it's really hard because what happens is while more housing has a way of lowering rents across the city, unless we continue to build, really, there's going to be an impact disparate benefits, but very specific impacts. The area right next to the project.
This is what I want to talk about.
Right. The area right next to the
is
project.
F.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Right. And while we're getting the benefits of lowering rent across the city,
no one gets this.
The property values right by the project
are going to skyrocket.
Yeah.
I've been trying to drive home this for months on this platform, and people either don't care or don't want to hear or just it is what it is and are just ambivalent. Is that the right word of this?
I don't know.
It's going to take 10th and Page and destroy this historically African neighborhood.
Yeah. So, and another thing is because then a lot of people say, well, the answer is to build. And even if we do build a lot, when you have that much employers going in there, not everyone's going to want a rental unit or something. It's just very, very, very difficult to not impact the neighborhood that's right adjacent to that project. That's a very hard thing to do. So what's exciting is some of the things that are coming before council, I guess tomorrow, where they're going to have they're going to increase the affordable housing fund and then very specifically try to target it towards preserving existing homes via loans to renovate those homes. And you'll, in exchange for lending money, I think you'll have to put in an affordable unit or something like that. I think the details, I guess, they should be posted on the agenda. I haven't looked at it. But that should help. There's all these, there's programs to help people with taxes.
Tax rebate programs.
Yeah.
But what's going to happen, and they're just going to chase short-term capital, chase a short-term paycheck, sell the home to the highest bidder, and then it's going to be gentrified completely. That's what I see it. I used to live on Belmont, 208 Little Graves. The Graves tree is right behind Spudnuts. Me and my buddies, fresh out of UVA, we were so freaking broke. We had no money. And it was 4 of us in a 2-bedroom house. Mm-hmm. One of us was living in the Four Seasons room. I had the front bedroom. My other buddy had a bedroom. My 4th buddy was climbing a rope ladder to an unfinished attic that had no HVAC and was living there. And that's what we could afford in Charlottesville. And in Belmont in 2005, we literally watched yuppies and white professionals come in and change the whole landscape of the neighborhood, and blue-collar OG got pieced out of there.
Yeah, it's a very real thing that is happening in 10th and Page. You see it when you walk down the street. The new very large big house.
Those colorful houses on 10th Street. Yeah, they're beautiful.
Yeah, they are beautiful, but they are also
$500,000 homes next to $120,000 homes.
Yeah, so it's really very hard because right now we're in this situation where we're not building enough. So if we build anything, it puts there's lingering pressure regardless of whether dairy is there. What if we didn't build dairy? Is the answer. If we didn't build dairy, then there would still be pressure on 10th and Page. And it would be even worse perhaps without those units. The answer to that is also dairy is bringing in employment
tons
as well. So people are gonna, but that should be good. We should use that money for funds. So it's these are complicated things. I think that the land trust is also supposed to be a way to bring that in, because the thing about these programs with missing middle, the incentives, is what I really fear is it's so hard to build an ADU that if you have somebody in 10th and Page who's going through that process,
facing either eviction or can't pay their mortgage.
And they're going to be like, oh, yes, let me get this loan from this government entity, this new loan program, and I'm going to put in this. Yeah, it's
an ADU is going to be $100,000 more. It's going to deepen them down the rabbit hole of not being able to meet their overhead.
Right. Well,
or they can't even get the financing to build it.
Right. They can't get the financing, but that's why the financing is going to come from the CA, whatever. So the financing should come from the city. That's the whole idea. But yeah, the idea of somebody facing eviction because they can't pay their tax bill, going through this program and putting down an ADU, I mean, that's really hard. That's a heavy lift. But at the same time, these things can help people who are just barely making by and they want to stay, and this would put them over the edge, or they have like a family member who needs to age in place or something like that. So these things are good. I just think that we need to do more than just that. And the answer for the more is probably going to be public funding, directed towards this area, for tax breaks.
Yeah,
or
tax rebates.
Trust, tax rebates.
Yeah.
So
2 more questions I'm going to fire at you. And the last question I'm going to throw to you is, tell us what's happening on Wednesday and why the entire community should get behind you.
Yeah.
You've killed this. I got one more before I get to that. One more.
Okay.
Sure. This one is from our friend Matthew Gillikin.
Okay, yeah.
And my politics
Twitter
and his politics are very different. Okay. But I still respect him and where he's coming from, and I'd love to interact with him. Okay, he has this question for you. James Watson, who's in this game, just said, phenomenal show once again. So many true points. Your guess is off the chart smart.
Yay.
Matthew says this, Nicole, please lay out your development plan on Franklin, what it would look like if the proposed new zoning changes had been part of the zoning code. How many units, pricing, etc.
Yeah, so this was a great question because we built a house. It is finished. It's beautiful. It's on Franklin Street, and it's at the asking price is $550,000. So here I am sitting for how long have we been here, Jerry?
We've been here. You've been doing this 73 minutes. This is the longest show we've ever done.
Okay,
and it's a testament to you. It's a testament to you.
So so here we are talking about affordable housing, and I'm building this super expensive
$500,000
house.
plus.
Yeah, so get out of here, Nicole, literally. So I struggle with this because, at the same time, it's like, baby steps, got to build a house first before I can build, I got to learn how to,
crawl before you walk and run.
Yeah, I got to know how to put a hammer against the wall, right? So I'm trying to be kind to myself, but but what kind of made me be okay with this was also, before I get to how the new regulations might impact how we would build it, there was a proposal. So there's 4 houses on that street, or 4 lots. 2 are already built. One is one we built. So that whole property, including those 4 units, was owned by a developer, and they proposed a PUD. Yeah. For affordable housing. Okay. in the city in 2000.
And it was like, no way, Jose.
In 2006.
Yeah.
And they had proposed 7 units, kind of small houses, right? Like 7 houses back in 2006. So it was 7 houses rather than 4. And his price points if you look at the minutes, was like $200,000 to $250,000, $300,000 to $350,000. That was in 2006, so it's going to be way higher now.
Sure.
But if that had been passed, then that would look very different, right? But now he is very restricted of what he can build because it was not passed, and you have to go by what is allowed by the current zoning. Okay. But what's interesting about the current zoning, so not the new proposed zoning, but the current zoning, you can still build an accessory dwelling unit. So it's 4 lots, so you can have 4 homes, each with an accessory dwelling unit.
That's
so
huge.
8 families or 8 units.
Yeah.
Right? 8 units. So he was proposing 7 houses. So it was real stupid. Right? Like it was really all about the aesthetics of, we don't want to see smaller affordable housing. We just want to see larger housing, like more that fits with our neighborhood, and relegate people to basements. Like it just, right? Like you could still get 8 units by right. So you're not changing the traffic impact necessarily, the impact of schools. Like it's 8 units by right, 7 under the split. Like it's a real stupid, and like, so you're relegating people to basements because you think that something should look a certain way, right? Like I need to be real with people, right? At the same time, so go back to Matt's question which was
how would it look different?
How would it look different under the regulations that are being proposed?
Yes.
So not the current regulations. The regulations are being proposed. So honestly, what we could have done, which we thought about doing actually, what stopped us was the owner regulation, was doing so it's 2 lots. So what you could have done is a shared driveway and build 2 houses with accessory units in the back, and then rent all 4.
That would have been sick.
So then you could have had 4 units. So the weird thing about that is that we wouldn't have been able to do it on the current regulations because of the owner occupied restriction. So there's, under the current regulations, you have to, if you build 1 lot with 2 units, an accessory unit and a primary unit, one of those units has to be occupied by somebody who's going to live there as their primary residence. So you can't just rent out both units, though that happens all the time.
Yeah.
I've lived in an illegal ADU.
Of course, me too. We all have.
Right. So if in other words, if an investor or developer could rent out all 4 of those units, they're more likely to build it. Because what's real weird is building an ADU or 2-unit thing, 2-unit, like a 1 unit with an ADU in the back, and then selling that to a homeowner. That's real hard. I don't think people really understand the benefits of the ADU yet. If you talk to a millennial couple, they get it more than an older couple.
The ADU is a no-brainer for anybody who's watching. You have an ADU, you can put your mother-in-law, your mom in the back. You can rent it to somebody for supplemental income to help overcome the overhead.
Right.
You can have your friend who just broke up with his girlfriend and she kicked him out of the house and put all his stuff in the front yard, which happened to me, and you can have him in the ADU.
Yeah. So, but all people really see is the end price point is higher.
Yeah.
So it's hard. We do have an ADU in our house. So It is still a 2-unit. It's just an interior ADU. So it's still a 2-unit complex, which is good. So it's an expensive house, but hopefully it'll house 2 units, whatever. But so it's a long way of saying under the proposed regulations, we could, if the proposed regulations go through, we could have done or could do the 4-unit thing. But people, it would be, why do we have to make it that unit, those 4 units, why do 2 of them have to be accessory? Because in other words, if you had the ability to subdivide and sell a small house rather than an ADU, I think that the market would be able to respond faster.
Oh, no doubt.
To that.
100%.
And
then selling a single family with an ADU at a higher price point. You'd have more buyers because the price point's lower.
Right. And also another thing with that is that there are more, there aren't many people that are as nimble as us.
Yeah.
That could be like, oh yeah, I can build a single family house, or I can build 4 units and rent them. We're really a small operation that can kind of...
You can pivot on the dime.
Put that to, But there are a lot of builders that just going to build the same thing, and they build for sale product, and that's what they're going to build. And if we're make it easier for that for sale person to do that, then
you're talking like a Ryan, or you're talking like a Stanley Martin.
Not even a Ryan or a Stanley Martin. I'm talking about even like
a Southern.
A Southern would be a good, but even even the smaller operations, they are still more focused.
Like a Craig.
Well, Craig is about as big as Southern almost. I don't know. Whatever.
Southern's 3.
Yeah, Southern's
Ryan
probably
1
bigger.
in sales. Southern, Stanley Martin 2. Yeah. Last question.
1, 2.
Last question. You've crushed it. Okay, and I'm going to try to sneak this in.
Jerry.
I know. Last question.
Okay.
Wednesday.
Oh yeah. So Wednesday, yeah. So Wednesday. This is my second attempt at building small houses.
Okay.
Oh yeah. So Wednesday. So it's if we ever want to talk about like an example of a project and why we're building the way we're building, it's such a good example because we had originally proposed apartments with small houses in the back, and now the apartments are gone. And it's small houses in the back and townhouses. And we've scaled down the development so much. It is literally 40% less density. And still, I'm not sure if it'll get passed. So it's one of those situations where, again, I'm thinking, listen, I know this county thinks about and talks about affordable housing constantly. They're revising their affordable housing policy or their housing policy generally. And so we just have to understand that if we want affordable housing, we have to think about how there's some things that need to be sacrificed for that. Like the buy right plan that can go in there is 11 large houses. And we're like a very marginal increase in traffic when you analyze, because we've scaled it down so much. And it's like, okay, that very marginal increase in traffic is so worth the benefit of the missing middle housing versus the large expensive housing. And it's just so hard to make that pull and get that, get supervisors to understand that, because of course it's all negative that they're hearing, right? There have been some brilliant, Dunlora is a community that loves by it. There's been some brilliant Dunlora residents that have supported the project, which is amazing.
That's
to
amazing.
See.
That's a testament to you.
Yeah,
and the project.
Well, it's a testament to them because they're amazing people, and so they're going to speak in support of it, and so that's really exciting. But it's just, in other words, it's just an amazing process to watch because it's like, man, this makes so much sense. We're meeting affordable housing goals. We're building something that's a creative housing product type, right? And yet,
in the urban ring, in the urban ring.
Yeah. So anyway, Wednesday, if you can't make it, email people, your supervisor or supervisors.
Wednesday, Board of Supervisors, listen to this. Support Nicole's project. The county desperately needs this project. Folks that are watching, support Nicole's project. Email the supervisors. She is doing good things for the community. This community needs missing middle housing.
Yeah.
It does not need another 11 McMansions in the urban ring, which is the alternative option. Is that right?
That is very right, yes. 11 large houses.
11 large houses. We're going to get her out of the studio on this note. We will syndicate today's show for 2 weeks following the broadcast across the I Love CVille network. You crushed it. 17 Facebook pages, 17 Twitter accounts, the third largest Instagram in the community, a newsletter that goes out to over 130,000 inboxes every morning at 11. Many Board of Supervisors and counselors. In fact, I think all of them are on that email chain. We're going to turn it into a video cast on ilovecville.com, and we'll take the audio and put it into a podcast on Apple Podcasts and on iTunes. I'm Jerry Miller. It's the I Love CVille Show. We close with the same message every time. Ladies and gentlemen, please embody the golden rule and have a mindset like Nicole's that is trying to make the community better than when we first arrived. We need the golden rule in this community. Tomorrow we have, the tale of two entrepreneurs, and Maria McKenney and Mike Copany on the I Love CVille Show. He owns Martin's Grill, 29 North, and she is an entrepreneur in the design and beauty space. They're married. We're going to talk about what it's like to be small business owners as husbands and wives. Take care, guys. You crushed.
Yeah.
Seriously. Did you have fun?
Yeah.
We went 90 minutes. We never go that long.
Yeah, that was really long.
It was so